Welcome back to Relationship Revolution. We're starting into the solutions for all the challenges of unity. The first solution is the foundation of all the other solutions. It's the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. I used to not know why that came first. I first started figuring out the love your neighbor as yourself part. We're going to talk about those later on. How to listen, how to speak the truth in love, how to build emotional bank accounts. I just couldn't figure out, why does love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength come first? I think there are many benefits to loving God at that level, but one of the side effects really comes into play in interpersonal discussions that we're having. And here's that side effect. The closer I get to Jesus, the less I feel a need to defend myself. Remember we talked about the adrenaline rush is what causes disagreements to turn into conflicts? Well, if I don't need to defend myself, then my adrenaline doesn't kick in. So I'm much more likely and much more capable of staying in disagreements rather than turning disagreements into conflict. And staying in disagreement land makes it so that we can talk about anything and figure out solutions much easier. Releasing that damaging fight, flight, freeze, or flee is the foundation of interpersonal skills. I talked about in the 5 levels of interest video that identity is a deep thing, and many of us have summarized identities at subconscious levels and we don't even know what they are. And we talked about complexifying your identity. Somehow when you start hanging out with Jesus in deep ways, He does that. Whether you know about the complexify your identity principle or not, He starts doing that for you and releasing you from those false summaries that you have of yourself. So one of the ways that we practice this in the dojo is by breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. Okay, the reason that you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth is that is the one process in your body that your autonomic system shares with your decision-making processes in your brain. In other words, if you don't think about breathing, it happens. But you can also change your breathing by thinking about it and breathe in and out whenever you want. So your two systems share that. It's kind of a bridge between them. What that means is when your adrenaline kicks in and starts forcing your body to go into automatic systems, if you can remember to go, if your brain can take control of the breathing, it can get back control of all the other systems too. So, kind of combine that with putting other truths into our brain, into what I call scriptural meditation. Psalms 1 says it, "Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee." Okay, that was Psalm 119:11. Psalm 1 says, "How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in the Lord's law he meditates both day and at night." Psalms talk about meditating on Scripture. What does that mean? Well, what I take that to mean, and how I practice it in the dojo and have other people practice it, and I've had people tell me, wow, that really makes a difference. Memorize it. If you memorize something and put it into your brain, and you have it available for yourself, then you can use that stuff that you have memorized to yank your body back from an adrenaline rush system into a controlled, doing what you know you should do system. Let me show you what I mean. For instance, have you ever had a thought you think, oh, I've really got to get that thought out of my brain. But the more you think about that thought, the more the thought stays there. It's the proverbial, don't think about a pink elephant, and now all you want to do is think about a pink elephant. Well, I know how to think about something else other than the pink elephant. And there really is the key. You can't not think about a thing. What you have to do is think about something else. Let me tell you this way. One time I was mountain biking with a good friend who was an excellent mountain biker, and I was an all right mountain biker. And we came to a hill in the Ozark Mountains, and it was a typical old logging hill. It was full of big rocks, lots of boulders, lots of logs that were down across the way. I mean, barely a path through the thing. So I started over the hill, and I was kind of using my brakes going really slow, and I hit a few things and had to put my feet down and move the bike over. My buddy, who was an excellent mountain biker, just took off. He was flying down that hill. And he got down, and he waited for me, and I finally got down to the bottom of the hill, and I asked him, "How did you do that?" He said, "Do what?" I said, I was burning my brake pads up there, but you just flew down that hill. How did you go so fast without hitting anything?" He said, "Oh, it's pretty simple. What I do is, and this is a mountain biking principle, when you're mountain biking, you put your eye 20 feet out in front of your bike and trace the path that you want your bike to go. And then you forget about it, and your bike will go where your eye looks." He said, "David, what you were probably doing is you were looking at the rocks and the logs that you wanted to miss, and your eye looked at those rocks or logs all the way until your tire hit them, because where you look is where your bike goes." Now, let's combine those two principles. My aha moment with scriptural meditation came when I was discussing with a wilderness backpacking group who I was making memorize scripture. And I was telling them, for some reason, when I'm memorizing scripture, my behavior is better. I find it easier to be the person that I want to be. And I'm not sure why, but I think I figured out that memorizing scripture does that. And we talked about it for a little while, and then all of a sudden, that story, that mountain bike story about Chris and the scripture, "Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee," came together for me. Oh, it all makes sense. Because I'd heard a pastor give a sermon on Psalm 119:11, "Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee." And that pastor said that the word for sin there is an archery term. If you pull back and you shoot at a target and you miss the target, the person who's watching will say, "Sin." Sin means to miss the mark. So, if you don't miss the mark, what do? You hit it. Right. So you could say Psalm 119:11 this way, "Thy word have I hid in my heart so that I might hit the mark." In other words, I memorize scripture for the behavior I want to do so that I will do that behavior. And here's how it works. So you put together the breathing well so that you can remember to do what you should do and quoting scripture. And then when you get into a hard situation and you're tempted to get mad, if you've trained yourself to do this, "Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Lord, let every word that comes out of my mouth give grace to the people who hear it. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who captures a city." If I've trained myself to do that in response to challenging circumstances, then I will behave better and do the skills in those challenging circumstances that will help those challenging circumstances resolve and come to satisfying solutions. We'll talk in a future session about how to practice all these skills that we're talking about, because practicing adrenaline sport skills is the only way that you will make it so that you can do them under duress. You can find these principles and more in my book, Muddling Along or Unity, Confessions of a Recovering Jerk. It's available at Amazon.com in print, Kindle, and audio formats. To learn how to practice these principles with me, go to DialogueDojo.com.